Hello, it's Regina. Welcome back to my haunted library. Today I'm doing a bit of an AuthorTube catch-up. I was watching a couple videos over the weekend on YouTube, and they were talking about AuthorTube and the writing community. I've never really felt part of like a BookTube, AuthorTube writing community. I would like to. I'm kind of new on this platform, so I love to connect with other writers, and I mostly do that through Wattpad, but yeah, I would love to hear from other writers, and if you'd like to send me your book for me to review, I'd be more than happy to take a look at it. And you can send me an email. I'm not on Twitter or Facebook, but you can contact me through my email, and or just send me, I have a mailing address for my haunted library. If you'd like to send me a book, I'd be more than happy to take a look. I mostly look at work in like the horror, gothic, mystery genre, although I also love science fiction and fantasy. So yeah, contact me. I'd love to hear from you. I always am interested in meeting other independent writers, and I've read some great work by independent writers, and I do occasionally review them on here and on my blog. So just wanted to throw that out there. So I've been writing a lot. I'm always working on something. So in the last couple of weeks, I guess the biggest news was that I didn't win a Waddy Award. I was on the short list, and I didn't expect to get on there, but I was a kind of then, of course, hoping to win. And then when I didn't, when I came in last week, I was like, but it's an honor. It really is. It's an honor. I'm not being glib. It was an honor to be. It was an honor to be nominated. Yeah, so that was great. But as disappointing as that was, and that was for my book, The Ghost of Dark Hollow, which I have a whole series on Wattpad. It's a young adult paranormal gothic series, and I'm currently on book 4. And I really have to hand that to Wattpad for giving me that platform to write all those books in like over a year. The problem is that maybe I'm like a lot of writers. I love starting a new book, but I hate finishing an old book. So for the next several months, I decided I have to catch up on some projects that I need to complete. And it's really hard for me to just leave something hanging, but I have a lot of things that I need to work on. And the part I despise most about the whole process is the editing part. But that's where I'm at. So I'm currently editing this book, which is a novella. It's very short, called Cousin B. It's an homage to Daphne du Maurier's My Cousin Rachel. It kind of has a similar plot, without giving too much away. But I would consider it a young adult. It's a very short work, but the reason I have I like to have the actual printed book of my work, and so this will be out as soon as I finish it. I always do my last edit on this kind of copy over even printing out the text, because there's something about seeing it in the book form that helps the errors just jump off the page. So I'm going to finish that book. And then the next big book on my plate is a book that I've been working on for much too long. It's called Fashion Victims. It's a novel about a fashion designer in New York who's kind of like on the brink of his big show, and he's also on the brink of a nervous breakdown. It's not exactly horror. It's more like a psychological thriller. And while all this is going on in his life, there's like a 7th Avenue serial killer knocking off people in the fashion industry. It's a little like kind of campy, snarky fashion expose. When I started this book, gosh, it was probably 2 years ago. I wrote it for a NaNoWriMo 2 years ago. It was last year that I did it. And so I had 50,000 words of a first draft. That's a bit of a mess. And I did start going through and working on it. I have to actually finish it. I know how it's going to end, but I have to just sit down and do it. And the problem, and this is something I've learned, and I guess other writers can relate, I really learned on this project to not drag things out, because what happens is then you lose your mojo for that story, and you're not compelled to go back and continue to work on it. And it kind of coincided with me joining Wattpad, not that I'm blaming that site, but I started working on these more like young adult books because that's what's popular on that site. And I thought, well, I'll I'll do something specifically for this site, and then it just grew, and it started gaining momentum, and it started getting a lot of readers, and it started getting featured on that site, and I have 150,000 reads on this stuff. So that was encouraging me to keep going with that story, which I did. So I wrote 4 books, but now I've got this book and Fashion Victims, which I've completely neglected. And going back and reading it, I did kind of get back into my headspace of like, well, where was I when I decided to do this book? I write adult horror books, kind of like thrillers, and I wanted to, before I forget, I wanted to give a big shout out to Paul Reeds, and I noticed that he was celebrating because he got his first 1,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, BookTube channel, and he's awesome. I'm going to link his, you probably know who he is anyway, but I'm going to link him below because he's a great YouTuber. He does all kinds of like shout outs to other booktubers, and that's really what his channel is about in a lot of ways. Plus he reads a tremendous amount of mostly horror books, and he's read my 2 adult horror books, and he gave them really good reviews, and I was very grateful that he did that, and it was really sweet of him to reach out to a brand new booktuber, AuthorTuber, and an unknown author, and kind of give me a little bit of a lift. So I really appreciate that, and I would like to give back to that. So that's why I'm saying, please send me your work, and I'll take a look. So this book, Fashion Victims, has kind of been stuck in my craw. I think maybe a part of why I'm blocked in some ways with this book is because I really want to submit this to a traditional publisher just to see if I can get it through. So maybe there's something psychological going on there. Paging Dr. Freud. So I'm being very perfectionist about it. So so I'm kind of blocked on that, but I'm going to work through it. I believe in finishing things. I don't like to leave things unfinished. And speaking of that, I started, you may have noticed if you're on my channel, I've started adding these short videos about a project called The Weirdness, and that is a film project, independent film project that I started about 5 years ago. Never really quite finished it. I have an hour's worth of like a first season, but it never really got to the complete idea that I had because I was doing like this experimental film project where once a month some of my friends and I would get together and shoot just for one day a month. And I did that for several months, and then I don't know, a few months would go by, and then we pick it up again, and it stretched out for over years. I had this big climax planned, and like the week before, one of the key cast members moved across the country, and then someone else moved, and people went on with their lives, and which I understand because, like I said, it stretched on for years. So I have sort of it's kind of an uneven project at this point. It never really quite got complete, and so I didn't want to just have this thing that I did that I think has a lot of potential as a story just sitting there on Vimeo and no one watching it. So I decided to bring it into Wattpad, which is great because you can put video, at least YouTube clips and whole videos in your story. So that's what I'm doing. And so I started doing that, and I'm telling the story through the video, which I've divided into small scenes, and then written words, which are in the form of like diary entries and documents and files from these different things. It has kind of like a Stranger Things kind of vibe to it, although it was I started it before Stranger Things came out, so that didn't influence it, but it was like kind of a weird coincidence that it has a very similar vibe, kind of like Beyond the Black Rainbow as well, which definitely was an influence on this. It has that kind of 80s science fiction vibe, and you can check it out on my Wattpad page, which I'll link below. I'm really proud of The Weirdness. It was a real group effort, so there were a lot of people who were involved in it. The cast and the crew all did a really amazing job, and so it's there, and I'm finishing it as far as maybe not finishing it as a film, although I would love to continue with it. I think it would be kind of fun to do that. But, and maybe I'll still make some video or audio content to go with it. Maybe just like shooting on a phone or something, which I think is kind of interesting. So it's like a multimedia project. So check that out if you can. So that's what I'm focusing on, finishing up projects that I started. And I mean, I love starting new projects. I think I'm probably not alone in that. It's really fun to begin something and to start fresh. And it's a little more of a drag to complete something that you've kind of lost your mojo for a little bit, as is the case with my novel, but I will finish. And I'm hoping that I will become reattached to it in a way the more I work on it, and I will fall in love with the idea again. And that's really key when you're working on anything creative. You really have to love it, or else you're not going to be there working every day. You know, no one's paying me for this. This is all coming from my own volition, you know, of wanting to do this. So that is my AuthorTube update. And if you are also an author, if you see this, please let me know what you're working on. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like, and send me your work. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, that's all I have for today. And thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.